Because Mercedes, I mean, because for a minute I had hopes for her because just like that match with her and um Bianca Belair, that was a very emotional match
Yeah,
because they were the first ever hats off to WWE for that. The first ever women African American women to main event
yeah,
um
yeah.
at a
Part of
WrestleMania was
WrestleMania, part, yeah.
like I know when I watched it, like yeah, it was emotional because and you could see it because I always go back to that clip because or I go on Peacock and pull up that WrestleMania because you could see it in their eyes. They before they that's why a lot of people in the comments they were like, man, why were they standing there so long? Like before or why they didn't just go ahead and ring the bell? Like you gotta we all human. I mean, I get it,
Right.
they're characters, but at the same
Exactly.
time that is huge for black people,
Yeah,
you know.
basically it's monumental. You feel
Yeah,
me? It's like so yeah,
because you can hear the crowd at the arena. They were clapping because they knew what was going on. Like they could see it meant something to them. But don't get me wrong, Sasha, she's a good eh, wrestler. But yeah, like
but that's it.
only thing she like I said, only thing she good for is that little CEO dance and
And it's corny, like man, oh, I'm the boss, I'm the CEO. Like, really?
act like
Connect
it.
with the fans. Hey, AEW can't even draw a full house. I remember my wife,
Mm-mm.
she said you want to go to one in Columbus. Now mind you,
Yeah,
I'm
I did.
going
I,
out
I did see
going
that.
back and forth with my dad to Columbus. Well, they got him back down. He back down here,
Mm,
dad back down here doing all right. Glad he back
that's
down
good.
here.
That's
But
good.
she was like, "You want to go to the AEW?" So I said, "Hell no." Nah.
Hell
My
no.
my cousin Sean went to one, and she like, you know how you record, hey, the wrestler's coming down.
Mm,
It was empty.
wow. I thought that
Now I
was
can
a. I thought that was. I thought that was.
no, I thought it was too, but it was empty. They probably made it drew like 7,000 people, if that. That's crazy. Like those are the worst numbers for a big company, and you supposed to be generating money. Like even when the WWE went through the same thing during the Monday Night Wars against WCW, and they were smart. They went to smaller houses and drew. So when they had a crowd of 7,000, it was like it was packed. So, and I know in the head of the events, they book these arenas in the head of the events, but you have to say, look, okay, you either eliminate a show, because for one, this is my thing when you add more wrestling shows on television. Make sure you have a following, a crowd every whatever you take, whatever time you take your show, and it's packed and you have sellouts, then you could transition to another show. But I think they should have a show on Fridays. You got SmackDown.
Mm,
WWE's the big juggernaut. Pick another day. Or at least like, you know what? When the NFL, NBA, and baseball is over, have your show run in the summertime. Have a
mm,
show for the summertime. After your basketball's over or your football's over, because you're competing with that. You're competing. Everybody, WWE is a household name, and they connected with every sport because they have basketball players there, baseball players there, like are
mm,
intertwined with the storylines. So
mm.
why don't you kind of take that recipe? Oh, and this is my other favorite line. I'm gonna let you touch on this one when I say it. Well, we wrestle. Okay, so fucking what? Uh uh Claudio, whatever his name is, he wrestled in WWE, and guess what? He didn't get a push because he could talk on the microphone. We okay, if you're a hardcore wrestling fan, we love to see people wrestle and put on a good match. And I do too, because that's what I grew up on. My dad, when we watched wrestling, we had the Hulk Hogan wrestling dolls of et cetera, Junkyard
Mhm,
Dog. But
mhm,
see, when my dad watched wrestling, He knew those guys for other territories before they even went to the WWE. So when I started watching wrestling, it was Mid-Atlantic wrestling. That's the first Mid-Atlantic, which was AKA WCW. That was the first wrestling I ever watched. And I didn't even know because I couldn't comprehend it at the time. So when I
Hmm.
could comprehend watching wrestling, it was watching NWA National Wrestling Alliance. That was like the first thing. Then I would watch the WWE or when it was the WWF back then. But I didn't really get into I like the Ultimate Warrior and stuff like that, but I didn't really get into it real deep with it until Bret Hart became the WWE champion, WWF champion. And that's where I really got into it. I mean, I was into it with the Ultimate Warrior and
Hmm.
Rick Rude when they battled per se, but I was into the NWA and they wrestled. They put on good matches and they had good promos too. It was just the behind the scenes, the financial part where they had to sell to Ted Turner. So that
Hmm.
was the financial why they collapsed. But at the end of the day, when we watch wrestling, what do we normally quote? We'll quote the we'll talk about the match, but at the end of the day, we want to hear what they got to say on the mic
Hmm.
microphone. Like when we imitate the rock, it doesn't matter. Or the Stone Cold, Triple H, the
So,
game they
so,
had moniker
mm,
lines like we had Chris Benoit and the circumstance surrounding, and I could talk about him. Uh, he was a great in-ring performer, great wrestler, but he had no promo skills. He couldn't talk. So how can you promote somebody that can't talk? Because you got to talk to people in to come to the matches. You just can't be a good wrestler and think people gonna say like, man, oh yeah, he put on a 5-star match. Like Kurt Angle. Kurt Angle was the all-around best performer. He could
mm,
talk and he could wrestle. He could do just about anything. Coming from a guy with an Olympic background and didn't really watch the WWE like that. He never watched it like that. So him to go in from the Olympic world, a
with a broken
genuine
freaking
badass
neck.
with a broken freaking neck, and to learn how to learn to wrestle
Mm,
pre-stage and to be a good entertainer. And I think guys like the guys today, they need guys like Kurt Angle around to show them the
the
way,
mentor,
for
yep.
them to be mentored to be better professional wrestlers. Because like for real, like man, they suck, man. Like you can't like Adam Cole, baby. Wow. I know baby from Hurricane Chris, baby. Like what?
Yep.
You have to come up with something that people are gonna talk about. Like we could be
Right.
dead and gone. Everybody gonna be like the Rock. If you smell what the Rock is cooking, know your role and shut your mouth. Everybody's gonna say that. Ric
Or or
Flair,
or my
uh,
all-time favorite, Eddie Guerrero with the Viva la Raza,
yeah, Lawson, yeah. See, and that's another guy, Eddie Guerrero. Like Eddie had everything.
the
The dude
charisma.
had charisma. He could talk on the mic, and I respect Eddie Guerrero, and I'm gonna put him as my number one because he like I heard JBL on Something to Wrestle with podcast with Conrad. That's another one, Something to Wrestle with. Check that. I love Something to Wrestle with. Uh, he said he owed Eddie Guerrero his career because at the time Eddie Guerrero was like he didn't think he could keep up because he was going through health issues himself.
Hmm.
Eddie Guerrero was, and he picked JBL because they was best friends, and he made it his business to make JBL a star. He made JBL a star. He made him a star, and JBL said this on the podcast. He owed Eddie Guerrero everything and because he taught like we all know JBL from being that hard Texan, the act APA, just being that, but it's like him feud with Eddie Guerrero, he took on a different persona and it worked.
Hmm.
Eddie made it work, and after the Eddie Guerrero feud, JBL was established.
Hmm.
Because at first I'm like, they gonna put the belt on him? Like what? But
Yeah,
when you
that
look at his,
I do remember. Yeah, because I was like, who the hell is this guy? Like,
yeah, I know who he was because we like he's from the APA. That's just a Bradshaw Layfield. Justin Hawk when I was watching him wrestle back in the 90s when he first came to the WWE. But I was like, I never seen him as a potential champion, but he switched his. gimmick. And him working with Eddie Guerrero made it so much better. He
And it
was like
worked.
and it worked. And he was like, he never admitted to cheating. He was like, I'm your good guy. And it was just like people hated and it connected. It's like he connected. And when he was the champ, he was so smart not to be a dominant champ. He wanted to be like, I want to just slip just by the skin of my teeth. So the people would come back and hit me like he almost had JBL because
Hmm.
he switched his style. He still had the clothesline from hell, but he switched his style as being the guy that backed up, like, oh, it feed the comebacks. That's why like I said, if guys like JBL, they could help these new generation guys out now. They really need it.